Hello, welcome to New Human Podcast. I wanted to bring you today Shenandoah Weiss. We had a really awesome conversation, and I truly appreciated how Shenandoah reinvents herself during these very tumultuous times. And I really think that you will get a lot out of it. So enjoy. Do you yearn for a safe place of solace, upliftment, and transformation? New Human Podcast is your portal for the hands-on development of your superpowers. Welcome to the New Human Podcast. Enjoy. I'm meeting today with Shen Weiss, a dear friend, and her website is called sculpturaleveryday.com. And I see Shen first and foremost as an artist. And I think that on some level, that's probably why you picked that name. Like just that every day sort of sculpts itself. And that you assist people in doing that. As a coach, you do many things. You're a coach. You are a corporate learning specialist. You facilitate. You design curricula. You know about being present, and you know about really creating mindfulness. You have led meditations, big ones at Uber and in front of I don't know, how many people was that?
Like 17,000.
Wow. Imagine that. Imagine that. Yeah. When you did that, did you actually feel sort of a little bit of could you imagine the resonance?
Yes and no. It was, the pandemic had already started, and so this was over Zoom. And in some ways that was a blessing, just to be a little bit more it was almost like, being on stage. I do dance and I've done performing in the past, and it's like being on the stage and you're performing for a lot of people, but the lights are so bright, you can't really see anybody. You can kind of see little shadows of people out there. And, it's like a nice quieting experience. You just feel like you have this quiet space and the floor is yours. So do something with it. Yeah. And still, that people are watching you, but it's a comfortable watch. And so that's a little bit, it kind of reminded me of just the lights being on really bright, and okay, over to you. Wow. And so, and then, but yeah, I think when you're doing it, when you're in the flow, you're not really thinking about who's watching you, or you can't, right? And then you just be in your mind. But it's only after, when people are, giving you feedback and thanking you, that it's like, oh yeah, a lot of people watch that. So, wow. So yeah, that's really what it made me think about was performing in the most beautiful kind of grounded way possible.
Right. Not performing as an act of performing to people, but more just it coming out of you.
Yeah. And just that quiet stillness that comes from being on a stage. Or maybe that's the best part of being on a stage. The anxiety and stuff comes before that. But when you're actually there, I find it's a nice, beautiful, quiet, still experience.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, you embody that on some level. There is sort of this sense of groundedness that I actually feel from you.
Oh, thank you.
What do you sense that for yourself? How do you see that? How would you describe that?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think there's a part of it that like I can feel into is true. And then I think, for whatever reason, shaping history and whatever, I think I can come off more grounded maybe than I actually feel like I am to other people. That's just feedback that I get. It's like, oh, you were so calm in that meeting. And it's like, not really, not inside, but okay, I'm glad that's what you read. So I think it's both, yes, in my nature, but I think I can appear maybe that way more so than I feel in myself. But when I actually am, when I do feel grounded in myself, it comes from just a place of, it has to be, it's like a place of spaciousness. If I feel like if I take on, oh, I'm supposed to be this person, or I'm supposed to have something really smart to say, or, any of those shoulds start coming up, then that's when I lose my ground. When I can stay in it, it's just like, oh, right, I feel like I will be accepted no matter what. And that I have some sort of value to offer. I definitely never feel like the smartest person in the room or the most anything in any way, but I think that when I feel grounded is when I feel like there's something I have to offer, and I can do that in my own way and be accepted for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like when you feel free, when you feel like it's not like you have to do something, that's probably something that maybe at first with the meditation you had to sort of overcome. I mean, I would think like if there's 17,000 people watching, I don't know if you knew that at the time, but it's like, oh my God, right? I mean, anybody's mind would just be like, oh my God, like, what do I have to do to make this
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah. And like
But
so many people, I think I struggle with imposter syndrome like all the time. Right. It's like all of that is kind of pre to then when you're there, it's like, all right, well, I'm choosing to be here. I'm showing up. Let's just be here. And I'm just going to trust that what's going to come through me is going to be what needed to come through me. And that it will be an offer in some way. It might not be the most perfect offer that I could construct in my mind, right? But it's the offer that needed to happen at that moment from me, and just
exactly.
trusting, that was the way it needed to happen. So I think that's kind of
Yeah,
where.
right. To trust that that will be there, and that you don't even have to like make it happen, right? That
Yeah.
it
Yeah, and
just,
that sort of just like you're enough as you are. I think part of imposter syndrome, at least the way I've experienced it, is like, oh, like, I need to go gather so much more information to be of value, or I need so many more credentials, or just the sense of like needing more of something to be yourself. And I was speaking to a colleague, friend of mine who she's like in her late 60s, and she was telling me that she caught herself still in this struggle. She was like, gosh, I just had to tell myself, when am I going to let this go? And it's just like, I'm going to accept me for just being enough. And it really is that it's sort of a choice to let go of that more voice and just
right.
be centered in where you're at, and letting also go of an idea of perfection, right? Because that also gets in the way and is constructed of many other things that maybe aren't the true reality of what should be at the moment. So
Yeah,
um, I guess it's just sort of a accepting of the moment, and it's also accepting just of yourself, the way that you're showing up, and who you
right,
are,
right.
without needing more layered on top of that.
And trusting that there's a force. Do you feel it more in your heart, like when you really feel that you're just sort of like embodied?
Hmm.
Where do you feel like that force? I mean, on some level, you asked me that, we will at some point pick a card, because we used to do that sometimes. And it is sort of like about trusting that we will pick the card that right now has the most, I don't know, joy, helpful, meaning, something, contribution, right? Even though they're just cards and, they're in there. And I think it's that, right? It's that kind of like going to that space that's so much lighter and so much more joyful, and sort of feeling that there's this field that is always there, that is connecting us, and that somehow brings us just brings us amazing, like wings, like Red Bull. Red Bull gives you wings. Well, actually, it's not Red Bull because it makes me just hyper. But like, like just feeling like all of a sudden, like you're just sort of taking off.
Yeah, yeah. And you've taught me and been a partner in so much of that growth in myself, in my work with you. And yeah, it's almost like, yeah, it's the lightness. And I think that part of it is like not taking yourself too seriously, or not taking anything too seriously, like it's a make or break moment. And yet, like, there's a seriousness of dipping into the present moment, right? And why not make the most of this present moment? So if you're getting something like a random card, or you see a random animal cross your path, like, why not take it as an opportunity to like ask, like, oh, what might be here for me in this moment? So yeah, kind of a twofold thing there. It's interesting, the whole bowl.
Yeah. What kind of random animal did you see lately?
Well, so yeah, the one that comes to mind most recently. So I live in a urban downtown San Francisco center. So, I don't get to see like a plethora of wildlife down here, but recently on one of the buildings that's adjacent to us, there have been we discovered that some seagulls have made like a little nest there, and there's a mom that comes and feeds her babies, and it's just a little seagull party there. And so we're like, oh, that's sweet, but then I was reflecting on my partner, who's really connected to a dog that my mom has, and the dog's name is Gabbiano, which means seagull. And so we were just like, oh, like he's been missing that dog because we'd been spending some time down there. And then all of a sudden we have a seagull nest, next to us on this building, top of a hotel. Wow. So I don't know. It's just, it's stuff like that. Yeah. Like, oh, that spirit is trying to connect with you.
Totally.
How we were taking it.
Yeah. Oh, how cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think just in California, I don't take them, you see them a lot at the ocean, but I've never taken much like, oh, wow, that's a really unique animal to see. But in this instance, the context, it was unique to reflect on.
Especially as a mom, like a seagull mom, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here are the famous cards that we picked in Brazil. Same ones. We're going to pick them again. The person who makes these cards is Doreen Virtue. And so I'm going to do it just like we did in Brazil, right?
Okay.
I'm going to, like right now, just put that against my heart. And should I pick one for you?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. So I breathe and really focus on you, focus in my heart on you. And then I'm gonna just like close my eyes, actually. Much easier, much easier. Oh. There we go. Visualization.
Lovely.
Perfect. Wasn't that exactly what we're supposed to do, huh? Yeah. All right. Let us see. What does she say about that? Your clairvoyance, your dreams, and the pictures in your mind's eye are becoming more clear and powerful. This card asks you to trust and develop your visual skills and to use them in conscious manifestation. And the affirmation is, it is safe for me to see. I'm a very visual person. What do you think about that?
It's comforting. I think it's true. Just before we had this conversation, I was in another conversation with sort of a circle of coaches that I meet with on a regular basis, and I was really feeling like right now I'm in a big space of transition, and it's hard for me to see a big vision picture, you know, like I feel like I'm kind of, you know, almost hour to hour, day by day, week by week. I mean, that's kind of the longest sight line I have sometimes, is what it feels like. And so, and I'm in contrast, maybe I was putting myself in contrast to them, which, you know, they've kind of had their coaching practices longer as sort of sole proprietors, and they have more of a clear vision of exactly what they're trying to do. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what that is for me. And so, so it's funny to get this card today, because I was exactly saying the exact opposite, or that was my struggle. So maybe that card was called, you know, I'm calling that card in.
Of course.
More clarity.
Of course, right? And I think that this is so timely, because we sort of wanted to do this definitely for you, but also as you, as this wonderful person that can sort of be a model, I think. Because I think right now, everything is changing a little bit. You know, for a lot of people might have to find a new way of making money, might have maybe a new life that's even in a different location. Maybe relationships are shifting as well. I mean, it seems like things are just shifting and changing for everyone. And I couldn't think of anybody that I would love to do this more, you know, to really dance and to sort of just like maybe allow ourselves to be a little bit wild, you know, because I think for most people, when there's so much uncertainty, the mind comes in and goes like, be conservative, you know? I mean, it's sort of like when I first came to Florida, I was like, oh, I'm going to get me a job at Costco. You know, just because, I mean, Costco employs people around Christmas time, you know, and so that would be certain. And, you know, I would talk to a lot of people, and that would be great. And, you know, like everything is just sort of set up, and it just like, you know, would structure my day and my life. And with time, I realized that as fun as it could be to work at Costco for the holidays and stuff, that there was something else that really wanted to come forth, you know? But at first, it just felt like that would be the only thing that I would be able to do in some ways, you know? So I really want to encourage both of us to just sort of just like play and not let our usual minds get so much in the way. And really to like maybe, you know, especially since you were saying that these days it's a little bit hard to see the big picture. Yeah, it's super hard to see it this way, but we could turn it around, and we could imagine for a second that it is a year from now. So let's just say it is December of 2021, because I think 2020 is going to be sort of a year that has a lot of upheavals, preparations, elections, you name it. It's just like, you know, like that, right? Yeah. I think it seems like that's what 2020 is. It's just like digging things up, bringing things up, whatever, right? But I think 2021 is really going to be sort of a beginning of a new era. So imagine that everything is much easier, and that you are in December of 2021. Maybe you're celebrating with your family. And this has been your best, your most amazing year. What do you think? And feel free to close your eyes if you want to visualize. What do you think on the level of your own sense of yourself, on the level of what you have in relationship, on the level of where you live, on the level of what you're doing, that really fulfills you, and really allow yourself to, think big, dream, 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 dream big. I know that sometimes it's a little hard to do, but just really let yourself and just breathe and go to that heart that so beautifully directs and shows up when it needs to. And yeah, whenever you're ready, just let me know. What kind of pictures, what kind of views, what kind of experiences, what kind of ideas?
Yeah. Well, if I'm gonna dream big, like automatically when you said dream big, it's like I heard my practical voice wanting to come up and be like, well, what's really possible by the end of 2021. So I'm gonna let her be. Say thank you for showing up, and get into more of the expansion voice. The first thing that came to mind was just like where my home is, where I'm living. And I just pictured like a kind of a bright open home, like maybe like a 3-bedroom or something. But just like what I saw was the kind of bright openness and some greenery in the backyard, and this sense of being in a neighborhood that feels like a community. So that it just felt like a real home, like a place to be creating and living with my partner. And that's sort of the first vision that came to mind, was just this big, beautiful, bright home that we were occupying. And in the backyard, I can see sort of, an office / like art creation space, that's like my own, right? That's my little like lab to go in and make fun things and create.
What kind of colors? What kind of colors?
Yeah, a lot of what I first saw was just a lot of like light, like maybe like light pink, light white, light blue, and sunlight is just sort of what came to mind. So like sunlight and greenery was like.
Is it sort of beachy? Like, is it a little bit by the beach, or is it? Where is it?
Where is it? I would say the ocean is nearby, but maybe not like, it's not like sitting on a beachfront or something. It's just the ocean is accessible. But yeah, in the backyard, I just mainly saw kind of trees and greenery, and like a yard that felt like abundant and also contained a bit, like there was some sense of, oh, this is our little piece, that we've kind of carved out to do things in. And then there was lots of abundance outside to share as well.
Yeah. With some trees, actually grown trees in it, maybe?
Yeah, some grown trees, some nice vines, some grass, or something that would feel good to sit on, on the ground, put your feet on. Just that sense of, peacefully being at home, with like, and a feeling of like, this is so amazing, and it's like enough. I could never imagine wanting more material out of it, right? Like it just felt like this is what I need to be peaceful and happy. Like it's like a forever home.
Right. Yeah. So it's not too big, but not too small. It probably has a little bit of land for like a vegetable plot, maybe even, fertilizers or whatever.
Yeah, and that it's near like either like a bigger park or a beach or something where like everybody could enjoy. But in this little vision I had, it was like, oh, this is just a little private part that is for me and my family.
Yes.
And my friends.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. So that piece kind of came up pretty quickly as a visualization, just seeing myself sitting there looking out and just being so grateful
Yeah.
that this is where I get to spend my home time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, what came up for me sort of like more in a somatic sense was sort of like this feeling of um, just feeling seated in my power more, like really feeling like I give and receive, I give and receive, and that I know where my give is coming from. So just this sense of almost like a beautiful seated Buddha or something, you know, just being very still and um, yeah, engaging in the world, but also trusting enough that the world will come to me as well as I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have feelings of that dip in and out currently, right? But that if I'm really being expansive, like, oh, really being able to stay in that and stay in the truth of that all the time, like that would be my big kind of vision for how I feel. So just a real deep sense of sort of groundedness of sort of my lower body, and also like the spaciousness of the heart to be able to want to and continue to give without it even feeling like a give. It's just kind of coming through sort of like an open channel.
Yeah. Yeah. The visual that came to me is you being sort of in gentle waves. I mean, it could be ocean, but it could also just be energy of just these gentle waves, and you're part of it. And so the giving and the receiving isn't even so like directed, you know, like it's not even so much like, okay, now I'm giving and then now I'm receiving, but more like you're just really in that flow and you're
Yes.
just confident, you trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Flow is like, that's really what it feels like. There's not a trying to categorize or break something up. It's just, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing or how I'm meant to be spending my time. And in spending my time this way, I also benefit others, you know, but it's not so, there's intention, but not like so much efforting.
Right, right. Yeah, and you're offering what is very pleasurable to offer that really just is you. And you receive all that you deserve and need at the same time.
Yeah.
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 When you do that, what happens? Do you feel like, yep, yeah? Or does it feel like,
Maybe somewhere in the middle, depending. Right now, it feels more like, oh yeah, you know, if you asked me an hour ago, it would have felt like. So, yeah, that's just sort of what it feels like these days are like. But yes, I think when I think about it from however you want, if we want to divide it, like a professional sense, you know, or I guess what I'm giving out in order to kind of make a sustainable income or something like that, however we want to phrase it. Yeah, I do want to get into this feeling of waves because my experience of work historically has not been that. It's been a lot more efforting. And then now that I'm kind of in a freer space with work, I'm kind of pursuing more of what I want to do. I'm noticing an old tendency kind of come up, which is like, where do I claim mine? You know, like where do I put my little stake in the ground? And this is what I'm up to, and this is what you're up to, you know? And it seems so silly. And I think there's a lot of pain in that, right? Because it's like, as soon as I put a little stake down, I'm like, but everybody else is always already doing that. Do I have to move my stake over here? You know, it's just so much comparison and othering and there's a want to find good part. I think the other part is like being in a wave and finding good partnership in that. Like I don't see myself as an island unto myself that I'm just like, here's the Shen show and come experience it. You know, like I see myself in sort of network with others who are, you know, in that same wavelength, and we're all working collaboratively to be in that wave, right? Rather than me being so concerned with like, oh, my particular offer and how people are going to view me and whatever. And I think sometimes, at least at this stage and kind of opening up what I'm doing professionally, it can feel like that sometimes. And I don't like when I get kind of stuck there because it just leads to a dead end for me. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. And I think this is really opening up too, where it's less, I mean, I remember, I feel you, my dear. You know, like I remember a lot of the times sitting with other psychotherapists and always thinking like, oh my God, you know, like they're like, you know, also they're like Zumba teachers and they're psychotherapists and they're well dressed and they have like all of these like amazing clients, and me, you know, what am I, you know, all of that. And I think that things are really shifting to all of us sort of like working with each other and really enjoying, enjoying sort of just like opening each other up and creating just an energy that is just so much more fun and so much more of sort of like working together instead of having to just sort of like all of us sit in our little niches, you know, like the little clams, like oh, I'm in niche 16 over here.
Yeah.
It's so nice to just feel like we're in this together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I just like something that was really coming to me today is like, we're all really unique expressions of spirit. But I think like, if you're trying to put it in commercial terms about what people are up to, like nothing's that unique. Like everybody, you know what I mean? Like there's, everything's coming from somewhere, and like the uniqueness is like you being that unique expression of spirit, like doing it, right? But the thing itself isn't. I think there's so much pressure on things to be like unique offerings, and it's like such a trap to me, because I'm like, the more I hear, especially from people that like I respect and love their work, it's like the more it just sounds the same. Like, oh, that's what I, you know, that's how I think about my work. Or and instead of getting all riled up about that, like, oh no, it's, you know, they're intruding on my share of the marketplace. It's like, oh, like we're all just, we should all just be like working together and not, I think, just wanting to release the grasp on like what the thing is that we're offering, and more just like being in the offering, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from my experience, I mean, you offer transformation, you offer a sense of mindfulness, you offer you know, support in self-care, you offer, you know, a kind place to look at the monkey mind, you offer a wonderful place to celebrate the heart, all of that stuff. And so do other people, but only the people who are meant to love you will come to you, right? This is what's different. It's like your secret sauce is only yours, and you don't have to do anything about it.
Yeah, they're not having to do anything about it. That's the key, or what can kind of get tripped up in the mind, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like your website will attract the people that like your energy, and they don't even know on some level. I mean, it's like, it's sort of like, I mean, I'm sure that you've done that. I've done that in Brazil, totally. I would just go to YouTube and I would be thinking, okay, I dearly need right now a relaxing meditation, right? I mean, like, and then I would just sort of like let my soul do the picking, you know, like, this lady Eden, Lillian Eden, paradise, of course. Let's go with that, right? I mean, one person one time started to work with me because my name at the time was Ann Jorgensen, and she had a great experience with another Ann Jorgensen. That's how she picked, you know? You never know. But it's like that, and it's like what is meant to be yours shows up just for you.
Yeah, and that makes me feel like this sense of like it's what should be, and it's also very light. There's not this like, again, like not taking anything too seriously. I think I get a little bit like narrow when I'm around other people that I perceive of taking themselves very seriously. And then I feel like, oh, well, I have to get my little shell on and take myself very seriously to be part of this conversation. You know, maybe that is what's required in the moment to be taken, you know, to kind of mirror or whatever, you know, have a sense of legitimacy. But in the larger sense, it's like, I'm just so attracted to others who can kind of just like, it's not take it or leave it in like a disengaged sense, but there is something light and like there's a sense of fun and possibility and even humor sort of in how we're engaging, and that's what's attractive. It's that spirit, you know, not so much like their accolades or you know, how successful they are at whatever it is that they do monetarily or whatever. It's just like, oh, like that spirit, that's what I'm wanting to be around.
Right.
But it is, you know, in being, I don't know, in business, I feel like it's hard to trust that a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Or at least
especially
yeah.
Working in big business. I mean, you know, like big, like Uber and University of California and places like that. Yeah, they're intimidating in some ways. And I think everyone really feels that they have to put on this very serious and very sort of legitimate kind of coat, outfit, whatever. And I think that actually, in some ways, I mean, I don't know, I think that's really shifting. I think that, I mean, business may be shifting slower than you and I are shifting. I think that the individual shifts faster. But I really think that it is about cooperating. It is about really wanting to be in that energy full time. Wanting to really have fun, wanting to share that beautiful, spacious home and that awesome yard with your tribe. I mean, you know, your family, your people, you know, just wanting to share your heart. I think that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, what I do know in business is, or something I guess my last few positions have really taught me is like, just the ability to show up as a person who is fully present, who will listen, and who is interested in being in human relation with whoever's in front of them or whatever groups around, like that. It took me a while to realize like what a service that was, you know, to other people. Like it didn't really matter what expertise I had or didn't have or whatever. It's like, if that's how I showed up and had an intention of being helpful, you know, then usually that was just like, it gets you really far. That's not something that, you know, whatever, yeah, it's just not something that you like are taught in a degree program necessarily, you know, or whatever. You're not taught to think of that as value, but it's like, it's simple. It is hard to do a lot of the time just because there are, you know, anyways, just in life, people can be, you know, spicy and difficult to work out. But I think that's really what is like, oh, like, it's always, you know, in any case, it's always this idea of like, how do I switch myself from feeling powerless or not worthy or yeah, mainly those things into one of empowered or you know, in the being able to play and complete worthiness and acceptance of just how things are. And it's so much just a spiritual, mental embodiment shift than it is anything else. And
right.
so
it's practice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's practice.
Yeah.
And I mean, you giving people your attention is probably something that they don't receive much. Because I mean, most of the time, I even catch myself with my husband these days. Sometimes, I mean, I'm just these days just becoming even more aware of the funny stuff that I do on a daily basis. And I just catch myself just really deciding to keep a conversation going in my own mind while I am pretending to listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, I mean, I'm not there. I'm not present. And I'm in probably a conversation in my mind that's not even fun, because the only time that I am outside of my old conditioning is when I'm present.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm present, I can't be in my mind having a conversation. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's such a gift, that you basically hold the space when you're present for whoever you're with to actually step into the presence.
Mm.
Just notice you and go like, oh, wow, I can really be with her.
Mm-hmm.
I can really be in that spacious home. I can really be in that beautiful yard.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. That was something so simple and profound in it. And I think that's also sort of something that, you know, what I'm attracted to in other people, and what I'd love to continue to embody in whatever offerings I'm giving out, is like um, a profoundness, but also a very, like, a simplicity.
Yeah.
So much is presented as so heavily complicated with so many words and so many things to follow. And I just feel like the way people, you know, yes, all attention spans are shorter, and there's just so much going on. I think there's just a longing for returning to essence and simplicity, and still profoundness, you know, that's like,
It
oh,
is
right.
profound. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing, right? That is probably the most profound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One time, I was, it's one of the meditation places. There was like this Tibetan Lama, and I was asking a question, and I did something that was, and I mean, he was completely present, right? Like a very sort of older person, just radiating out love. And I did something that I totally wasn't supposed to do, which is I leaned on his, like, sort of like upper thigh, not upper thigh, lower thigh, like by his knee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a weird sensation that I just felt like I could almost just, like, my hand just, there was nothing that was like, like my hand just could almost just go into his knee.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just no real bones and skin. It was just so soft, like there was no boundary,
Hmm.
you know? And I mean, of course, I felt like, oh my God, like, I'm not supposed to touch this guy. But it was such an interesting experience. And there's maybe no words for it. And it was so simple. I mean, there was no interaction. There was some stupid question that I was asking, but that wasn't even what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
But the experience was so precious. And I felt so loved, just completely loved. And that, of course, then helped me at that moment to really recognize myself as that. Which usually, like my head doesn't really let me do that so much, And so I think, yeah, this is the most beautiful gift. I think that's what we all do deep down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, from working with people, as a therapist, and I certainly know from coaching, like, what people get out of a session is often very much a surprise. It's like, oh, I didn't know that's what was going on for you, but that's what they needed to get, and so, yeah, just, I guess it's like you're giving things out that you're not even consciously aware that
Right.
people needed,
Yeah.
but they needed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that story about the leaning on the knee of the Lama.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else do you think, now that you're in that space, I mean, I could sort of, do you feel that? Do you feel that delicious space inside of you? Like you look
Yeah.
rosy, you look joyful, you look inviting, right? And just happy, right? Like we've sort of moved maybe to a different level, right? Where we're just enjoying.
Yeah.
Right? And the head is going like, but there must be something to this. Like, how do we like create a niche out of this, right? Whatever, right? But it's just this, right? And trusting that even though people may want to come to you because of some perceived issue, that ultimately what really helps is to be in that space. Transformation happens in this space, right? Whether you're a mom, whether you're a lover, whether you're a psychotherapist, whether you're a co-worker, this is the space. This is like where the potential is. Right? The field of potentials, that's it. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're moving towards. And I think that it's not quite here yet. I mean, yes, it's always been here, but our consciousness is sort of slowly kind of more comfortable with it in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else? What other amazing, dreamy things do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a family, you know, my partner and I have been talking about like raising somebody someday. So I guess if we're dreaming big, maybe they're here by the end of 2021. I don't know, but I feel like that's part of the reality that comes in. Yeah. You know, humans and animals, right? I see some dogs running around in the backyard, and I think it's like moving away from the fear of like that would add in like constriction into life versus like that would just add in a new dimension.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I want to experience it, as like, wow, like real another level of transformational growth, not like I'm a parent now, I have to be responsible kind of, you know, dialogue, which, you know, just makes me shut down, you know. So and this is all happening in a very sustainable, supportive way. Like there's no nobody's unhappy having to support the system. Right. Everybody's growing and being in alignment with themselves in this system. Yeah. And then there's just a sense of trust and safety, you know. And I think, you know, during the pandemic, that's, I think what's really being thrown up for people is, I mean, you know, nothing is ever constant and things are always changing. We know this. And like, this is kind of a high watermark of that just being very visible for everybody. Right. And even for myself now, and, you know, in a lot of just in a kind of very bare bones, like employment way, right? There's so much uncertainty and shifting and constriction, right? Of funds flowing, you know, and things at this moment, right? That it's like, can feel like, oh, I just like gotta like grasp to whatever comes my way next. And like, so my like dreamer self is like, oh, there's none of that going on. You know, it's just things are coming as they need to come, and they're sustainable and fruitful, and that they're supporting others, right? There isn't this fight or constriction or worry about things going away, that I can really just be with them as they are.
Yeah. Does that feel, I mean, I think that is the leap that we're taking on some level, which is probably difficult for people because, you know, they're just sort of looking at like, oh, well, the hard reality is I don't have a paycheck right now. And yet, I mean, that was really interesting when we moved to Brazil. You know, we gave up our jobs. I never in my life, I never just had one job. I always had at least two, just to make sure that I was safe, you know. And I mean, in my 20s, I would just work instead of like going dancing or something like that, I'd be like, why not do some gardening on the side? You know, you can make a quick $50. That's worth it. You know, much more worth it than sitting at the cafe. So that was sort of my work ethic and my view of survival. And then we both gave up our jobs and moved to this foreign country. Mm-hmm. And at first we had like the rent, I mean, the part of the rent, the net rent from my house. So we had $1,200 per month. And I remember just like being completely freaked out, you know, just super freaked out. But it was so weird. Like here we are in Brazil and we're thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have a bike, you know, to get some bikes. To, you know, because the bus is kind of like the different experience. And so we go to this bigger town and we see these bikes and they're both like, each bike is 500 reais. 500 reais at the time was about $150. And we're like, oh my God, we can't, I mean, no way, you know, like there's just no way, right? And so we're looking at them and then we're just walking around. And all of a sudden, like the street is empty. And in front of us, there are four 100 reais bills, just blowing in the wind. Right? So we're like, okay, what happened? Where is the person? What is this? No one there. We picked them up. We bought the bikes. You know, all of a sudden, right? They were affordable. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird, but it's like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that may seem funny to people, but it has, even though there's still, my mind is just going like, oh, that is just like, you know, like that's not replicable, you know, or something like that, but it happens over and over. So I think we should trust it.
Yeah. Yeah. And something else too I've been thinking about is like, even if there is a, say, material constraint that's really present, you know, in one's life right now, like, you know, maybe it is that, you know, you need to move to a cheaper place or move in with a family member, you know, to save money on rent or something like that. It's like, you know, it might not be what you imagined the path to be, but actually like engaging with it is like, oh, it can bring real profound, like that can be a spiritual path as well. And, you know, regardless, maybe that's what was supposed to have happened, right? Like,
for sure.
You know, I've talked to, you know, in the pandemic, and certainly, you know, I also went to go kind of be with my mom, and a lot of people are kind of going home to their families. Sometimes it's out of economic need. Sometimes it's just wanting to be with family during this time. And it's sort of beautiful. I've been having lots of conversations with people about sort of this return to envisioning like intergenerational living again, you know, where that hasn't been so present, at least in kind of Anglo-American, you know, Western culture, right? It's been about this nuclear family for, you know, a while now. And like, oh, doesn't that make more sense? You know, like we all, there's a lot of more distribution of duties and taking care of a home and, you know, at different stages of life. And so that's kind of, and that's never, ever something I would have kind of, if I would just have the menu of like chosen, you know, but, you know, it's just like, oh, right. Like it opened up a possibility of like, oh, if that's the way things need to go, or maybe that's the way they should go, you know, even though it's, you know, I'm not bound to that choice in this moment, but I thought, well, you know, if we do have a child, like, you know, would I want who would I want? I would need a community, you know, and so I would want my mom there, you know, and she actually needs help too, because she's aging and she needs help with, you know, things around, you know, moving things, and she wants to be of value too in her age, and not feel like she's just kind of like, you know, aging out of relevance or something, you know, and so, so anyways, I think, you know, a lot about in design, you know, the principle of constraints as being creative, you know, so if you want to take it on that level, but on, you know, maybe a bigger spiritual level, it's just like those things are meant to kind of take you on a path that you wouldn't have chosen otherwise, but there's profound transformation on. And I
So
think that might be a more helpful way to meet, especially like kind of the challenges that are currently happening. You know, it's like,
for
oh,
sure.
right. Okay, it's not what I necessarily would have chosen, but like I'm going to be present with it, and I'm going to see it as a road of transformation, not just like this bad thing that happened to me or thing that I have to do.
Yeah.
Because like, why not, you know?
Yeah. 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 I really think that that might also be a big shift that you probably also see in your practice, is really
Mhm.
sort of to see the gift in things that are happening that are maybe not that great,
Mhm.
you know? And I think COVID did that for so many people. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, I hear people really say, like, for example, I have a friend here and she has now a little 8-month-old. And normally she would be back at work every day, you know, and the little baby would be with a babysitter. And instead she gets to actually be with the baby. And she just feels so joyful about that, you know. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of things that are actually pretty amazing about what's going on right now in some ways, if you can look at it like that. For you, reconnecting with your mom is awesome. I mean, to give her a sense that she actually has relevance and that she actually can help you, and you know that what she does is important, is
Mhm.
just so special. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, I feel like right now it's, you know, on the one hand, I feel like it's important not to like have spiritual bypass over the things that are difficult, right? Like there's a lot of difficulty and just things arising, you know, whether it's loss, just grief and loss of just not just people, but how things were, you know, how things looked. I'm definitely
mhm,
having a lot of grief for over the way like my current neighborhood is transforming because people are vacated and, you know, businesses have left and things like that. So it's like, you know, I can recognize that, like I can hold that. And it's like, so it's like not like being able to tap into that and also being able to tap into, yeah, like you were saying, the gifts of what this moment is giving, like what is good about this moment. And, you know, and that might be in a different realm maybe than where you're experiencing loss or grief, right? But,
yeah,
you know, and life is so much like that, you know, there's, um, you know, and I think living a full life is living, feeling into the spectrum of that.
right.
And knowing, you know, it's all shifting and changing, but yeah, I find it's been important for me in my processing. And also when I work with clients, like I feel like some of my clients like kind of went into like just complete devastation and kind of stayed there for a really long time. And, you know, that's just what had to happen for them. Right. And then eventually we're able to kind of see gifts or kind of in hindsight looking back. Right. And then there were others that just kind of went to like, oh my gosh, this is such an opportunity. I'm going to do this and that. And like never really dealt with like the painful difficulty that was also going on. Right. So it's like, I don't know, just having the two things in balance all the time, I think is, or being able to know that you can kind of hold your attention in both places,
Mhm, mhm,
um, feels like a more grounded kind of way of
mhm.
just living, you know, moment to
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah. That at different times you're in different places, and yeah, how cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to honor the timing of it all too. It's you know, like real transformation, real growth. There's just there can be some. It can maybe there's a long period of time, you know, where things just feel very unclear, you know, and it's I don't know. It's sometimes the best things in life take a while to work out, and you might have a timeline for them, but you just kind of have to trust the timeline that they come with is what's supposed to be. And so I guess having respect for the process,
Mhm.
and knowing that, you know, things in front of your face will always be changing. And so it's just like, okay, like, can I bring a little bit of relaxation into my body no matter what's happening, so that I'm better kind of equipped to be with the present of what my reality is.
So that relaxation is based on trust, sort of that deep down you can feel that deep down looking back, life has actually been pretty nice, all in all.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Something
think
like
it is
that.
trust. Yeah. And I think for some people, like visualizing like where you place your trust might be a little bit different, right? For some people, it might be, yeah, just actually and pragmatically looking back at your own past experiences, you know, as a thing to relax on. You know, for others, that might be a sense of, you know, a spirit or sort of a larger force that's at play. For other people, that might be a deep sense of like ancestry, right? Like,
Mhm.
so, but it is this sense of trust in something bigger than what's kind of right
Yeah,
in front of your face.
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I get this picture of you just really being at ease, being very abundant, being sort of like, I mean, it makes me think of fertile too, not just like fertile in the way of babies, but just in general, sort of like harvesting, welcoming, and sort of like I see sort of like a larger context, like a larger community, you know, friends, people that you are working with, but that all in all, it's just sort of like they're all heart relationships.
Mm. Yeah.
It's all just like people that you love dearly
Mm-hmm.
and that love you dearly, who love you dearly. And sort of like this, yeah, I just get to sort of this picture of,
Mm.
um, yeah, of like a harvest,
Mm.
like harvesting
Mm.
what you have been sowing,
Yeah.
kind of, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Getting this like it's, yeah, the sense of like a net or just being networked with others,
Yeah.
and yeah, and just moving forward in ways and not feeling too much pressure to do this or that, you know, but just like, oh yeah, we're deciding to do this and moving forward in this way. And uh, yeah, you know, that the people negotiation part or the coordination part is experience it as more easeful maybe than I've experienced it in the past.
Mhm.
Sort of my vision.
Yeah. Do you feel that you're getting sort of like, how do you make your decisions these days? Do you feel that you are sort of, that sometimes you get sort of just like in a nice mood and then all of a sudden you've got like little ideas that just go
Hmm.
like that? Or what is it like?
Yeah, sometimes it is like that. Um, I think, yeah, when kind of like a random idea comes to me, but it's like I feel like it's like a good idea, but it's maybe not something I want to act on in that moment. You know, I've just kind of been keeping them, posting them, you know, writing them down, put them on little post-it notes and kind of putting them in an area. Um, and so that's kind of like one, you know, because I feel like, oh, like I'm getting a lot of, ever since the pandemic happened, I'll get like kind of like shots of ideas. And
Wow.
I think at first I was trying to like follow all of them and act on them. And then that wasn't really working. And I needed some time to sort out like, oh, is this something I really want to do? Or is it just something that came to me that day for whatever reason? So I guess like, but still collecting them makes me feel safe, right? Like I want to
Sure.
have my little jar of ideas, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I think it's also, I think what I'm really kind of working in, I wasn't even really conscious of this before like a couple weeks ago, is just um, being in my own timing. Like I've been wanting to slow down. Like I've been asking for that even way before the pandemic, and and now the pandemic's here, and so a lot of things actually around me have actually slowed down, you know. And it's, I feel like only now I'm kind of arriving in this space of where I'm actually like slowing down a little bit. And so I guess it's like almost like a feeling of wanting to stay in alignment with that. So it's like I might have, because I'm like a little doer body, you know, 10 things I want to get up to in a day. But then, you know, maybe I'll like just be engaged in something and I'm like, oh, I just want to stay here. I want to keep my focus here, right? And then I just kind of let all those things go off my plate to kind of stay in that thing. it's just, there's kind of this like, oh, I didn't get as much done as I wanted to kind of thing that comes up, right? But there's also just well, I just needed to stay here. Like that's kind of where the energy was. I guess it's like having some sense of directions of where I'm trying to head, and then really trying to feel into the day, like what the day calls for.
Right.
And it's really a privilege to have that ability in this moment, and to do that, because I don't have as many people, I don't have as many obligations towards a company entity right now, or I have obligations towards things, but they're not at the level that they were, right? And
Right.
so I have more leniency into how I can actually spend my days. And the trick is that I've had that for a couple months now, but at the beginning my days were fuller than when they were, so it's just kind of really, embracing it, and not getting on myself like I'm whatever I can vent in my mind about it, I'm being lazy or avoidant, or not fulfilling on my potential, or whatever else I can kind of put in there. It's just like, oh, I'm just really trying to be in this practice of being with myself, and that lining up with what I'm up to in sort of a work sense. And and I don't have, I feel like they'll come. I think that's what the vision is about. It's like I can see them kind of staying in alignment more, and being together and singing in that way. And right now it's kind of a little bit of a bounce out, so I think it's just the process of things kind of lining up. I'm experiencing it.
I think that's awesome because so you're organizing your ideas, and I think that at the same time there's so much sifting going on inside of you that just really crystallize something that isn't quite yet here.
Like I know it will come. It's not here, but when I try to make it here, then that's kind of where things fall apart, and I get in comparison mind, or get and oh gosh, I need 10 more credentials kind of mind, or so I think just trying to kind of be in the power of maybe, and of experiments, and saying yes to experiments. Like I know I can't, it doesn't feel like the time to be making commitments, that are very long term or something. It just feels like, the time of trying, just trying things, and seeing how they sit. Like you said, sorting, kind of sifting and sorting out.
Awesome. How cool. I so can see, I know, of course I know your life, so I know how you operate, and that things just materialize, and that looking back, you can sort of see, even though it seemed to come out of nowhere, all of a sudden there it is, So if you can stay as much in that beautiful space that you're in right now, and just enjoy, because it'll be there. But the more that I think you really can enjoy, even just maybe the limited time that you are in your apartment, who knows how long that's still going to be, right? But really just like enjoy your tea, enjoy, all of that, and just really trust that you're making it happen. I've seen you do this over and over and over. Right?
Thanks for that reflection. And I think like, in this conversation, it's like partnership around that, like just having you reflect that back to me. Like, I know it to be true, but man, I can lose my way with it. And so having a partnership and community to reflect back the things that need to be reflected back to you is like so important, I feel like, in the path. But I really appreciate you being a partner with me in this conversation, and also just, we were obviously a relationship outside of this recording context, but it's just that reminder of like, even the things that we know to be true, we need to hear them often. From others.
I think that is what the community should do. you know, like that supportive, you know, is just that, to really be there and to be that container and that reinforcer and that trust for you, so that you can sort of refuel from time to time when you need to.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. I thank you so much. That was
This has been
awesome.
such a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's been so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me the space to dream today, and and just to be in connection around all these ideas and truths.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.